Amazing, beautiful people, and welcome back to another reaction video. So it is no secret that I am absolutely loving solo leveling, man. I mean, it's been all over freaking Twitter, and by all over Twitter, I don't mean solo leveling, I mean me, my reaction. I've had people tagging me and clipping my reactions all over Twitter and stuff like that, and it's been pretty awesome to see. Links to my Twitter's in the description. If you're not following me there, you are missing out. It's a lot of fun over there. We have a nice little corner, you know, it's pretty cool. But anyway, I've been like raving about how much I love this anime over there, and it's just been wonderful, and the season 2 has been brilliant. And a lot of you have been asking me to check out more from AniNews, which I want to. AniNews is an amazing channel, so shout out them. The video we're checking out comes from AniNews. Link to the channel is in the description, so make sure you subscribe to them. And we checked out a solo leveling video about Jin-Woo's power level, but some people asked me to check out the cut content stuff. So I don't know if I'm going to check out every single one of these as regularly as the episode's being released, but if this series does well and people want it, maybe we will. But I'm definitely going to check out the one that was released just earlier, actually, and that was the Solo Leveling Season 2 Episode 1 cut content. A lot of people have told me that this hasn't got spoilers, and it's just going to give you a lot of information about what was missed out, because obviously they're fitting 4 arcs into 12 or 13 episodes. You know, it's not like a lot, so a lot of stuff gets missed out, and people said that this will fill in the blanks. So let's give it a go. Press that like button if you want more like this. Press that subscribe button as well. We are so close to 50k, so please press that subscribe button. And let's jump into my first time ever reaction to AniNews' video, Solo Leveling Season 2 Episode 1 cut content.
Opens with all the glorious action we could ever want from a solo leveling anime.
Yep.
Sung showed off in more ways than one. His shadow soldiers got to participate in their first ever battle, and Igris styled on his opponent like he was Let Me Solo Her fighting against Millennia. With all those amazing scenes filling up the episode though, it's easy to forget about the overall story behind it. This is something the novel takes its time building up, since it answers questions like, how did this gate become a red gate? Why does Sung feel a personal responsibility to help out Song Yi, and what's going on with everyone else in the story? There's quite a bit the novel adds which build upon the story, and that's exactly what I'm going to talk about here. Everything the anime left out from the manhwa and web novel. So, if you want to...
Honestly, I am weirdly... I can't even explain why. I don't know why. I just fucking love it. But I am weirdly loving solo leveling. This is the first time I've ever done this with any anime I've watched. Like, wanted to watch more about the behind the scenes and what's going on and more information and, like, really fledge out the story. I just want to build my love for this series. I am turning into just this mega solo leveling fan.
To see what else solo leveling has to offer beyond its continuous string of conflicts, stick around because it really does make the world that much more captivating. Episode 13. You Aren't E Rank, Are You? Covering chapters 46 to 52
I swear they changed
from the
the
manhwa
name
and
of
chapters
this song.
54 to 62 from the web.
When I first read it, I swear it said, what kind of E rank are you? I must have read it wrong.
To start with Sung's preparations
Only
for the
I
meeting,
level up.
there were quite a few things he needed to get done beforehand. He needed to find clothes that actually fit, and he needed to secure money to allow him to buy said clothes.
That's a good point.
All his previous formal wear now burst at the seams since he was so much bigger. This was a predicament that ended up solving itself because out of the corner of his eye, Sung had spotted the bank book Jinho gave him. Within it was all the money the two had earned from selling the magic crystals they found during their raids together. Sung wasn't sure how much was in it, but he figured he'd be able to go on a shopping spree using it. It was before he did, though, that first Sung would review his
same
stats.
guy, man.
He couldn't help but admire just how lengthy it had become. It wasn't until just yesterday that quite a few of these slots were empty, though, so now that they were filled, he felt a great sense of pride and accomplishment. In fact, before, when the job class section always listed none, Sung would get frustrated every time he saw it. He knew it didn't actually mean he had no job, but the message he interpreted from it constantly bothered him. It was as if it was making a mockery of who he was before the system. Sung knew this was nothing more than his inferiority complex talking, but it couldn't be helped considering what he'd always had to go through. You see, after years of introducing himself as the E rank, the shame he felt knowing people were always mocking him behind his back really stuck with him even now. Now that he had a really cool job class though, Sung was completely and utterly satisfied with himself. No longer was he worried about other people's perception of him.
This information is very brilliant, because the one thing that I find the most interesting about solo leveling outside of like understanding is Jin-Woo's personality. It is his shift in emotions and tone. And I even commented in episode 2 that he seems to be emotionless. And some people were saying he's shown tons of emotion. And yeah, I disagree. And you could say he's shown tons of emotion, but he just seems plain. And maybe he is emotional, but he hasn't shown a lot, especially when you can compare him to how he used to be, you know? But this actually makes a lot of sense because he's completely satisfied. And that satisfaction, when you think about him having this feeling of satisfaction, actually sits with episode 1 and 2. Because he is a bit more cocky. He is a bit more satisfied. And it actually makes a lot of sense.
With himself. No longer was he worried
All
about
of
other
this.
people's perception of him. No, he was more so intrigued by how people would react to him now. Like, just thinking about Jinho's stunned face when he would finally get to see his shadow army, that was enough to put a massive smile on his face. It was this thought which led Sung to think about what his new powers were capable of.
And that's why he's not really hiding them anymore
He
either.
could extract shadows from
like that, because like he went from like hiding it and really wanting to hide it, and in the first episodes he kind of doesn't really care. And although he's forced to like reveal it, he doesn't really care. You know, he wasn't like worried. He wasn't like, you know, sign here on the dotted line. He was like, don't tell anyone, and like didn't really care. You know. And you can tell he's getting to a point where he's like, people are going to find out soon, you know, whatever. And that's how his energy is. It's more blasé. And again, this makes sense.
Hunters.
Because he wants to show off a little bit.
The situation wasn't one he'd ever want to be in, but the thought of doing so gave him chills. He couldn't even fathom how powerful the shadow of an A or S rank hunter could be. Even if it was only 50% of their original strength, Sung fully believed the presence of one would allow him to solo high rank dungeons. So, the only thing preventing him from committing to the idea fully was the thought of how sinister such an act was.
So he preemptively thought about it.
Showed up to give him trouble, Sung wasn't willing to subject anyone to that. No. For now, he knew he'd just have to be satisfied with his shadow monsters.
How interesting.
The level 7 Night Grade Igris was more than powerful enough. Now, in addition to everything Sung had earned from the job quest dungeon, he had also gained 10 additional ability points. Before these would have been put
The thing is, surely at some point people are going to get a little bit pissed off with him, right? If you're just going around, icing people, building up this army, surely the world is going to start, like, worrying about him, you know? He's turning into, like, it's the idea of someone containing a hurricane, but they're, like, imagine I have a hurricane in my hands, and I could let go and it would just destroy the town or whatever, you know? But every day, the hurricane gets a bit stronger. And I'm the one making it stronger. And I'm like saying to the world, don't worry, it's fine. I just, you know, want to see how strong I can make this hurricane, but don't worry about it. You know, I'm not going to use it on you guys, it's fine. I'm just seeing how strong I can make this hurricane. The rest of the world just has to trust me. But why am I making that hurricane stronger? You know, I'm just using it to fight something else. It doesn't matter. People are still going to be scared, right?
Right into agility and perception, but now that his shadow skills operated on mana, every single point went into intelligence instead. It was still miles behind strength and the others, but Sung didn't plan on it being that way for long. That didn't mean he was going to change the way he fought though, since for now these shadow skills would just be his backup. His dagger was always going to remain as his primary means of combat. It was too much of a waste to throw away everything he'd already put into it so far. Still, Sung was amazed at just how useful his shadow skills were, since that single aspect alone allowing him to extract bosses through it made it so much more incredibly valuable. So, 20 minutes would pass with Sung thinking about his powers, then another 3 after where he would use said powers to help himself get ready faster. He didn't know yet how best he was going to use Commander's Touch, but at the very least he could have it help him retrieve his keys from the kitchen.
This is something they don't really showcase, which I was thinking about at the end of my reaction to episode 2, which is he has all these new abilities and all these new powers and stuff like that. Does he use them in his everyday life? Because they can, but does he? That was something I was wondering about too.
It was on his way to the bank that Sung couldn't even begin to imagine how much money was in this account. Usually Jinho shared everything with him, but when it came to money, Jinho didn't talk about it at all. It was just one of those things that he couldn't be bothered by. Such disregard puts into perspective just how wealthy Jinho is, because when Sung had gone and checked the balance of the account, it was revealed to have over $1 million in it. In a single week, Sung had earned himself well over $100,000 a day.
Fucking hell, man.
Each C-rank dungeon had netted him between $150,000 and $200,000 in revenue. The teller would then try to sell Sung on the VIP services the bank offered, giving him his first taste of what being a high-ranking hunter felt like. It was something he knew he'd have to get used to
holy
because
shit, dude.
the moment his new rank became public, he would effectively become a celebrity.
Yeah.
Another change was the wealth he simply wasn't used to, which after a haircut and some splurging at a department store, Sung would come to see why having money was way better than not having money.
Explains his new
He
look,
would
why
then
he's
head
so
to the
damn
school,
fucking handsome!
reminisce of the time he had these interviews himself, then remember how no one ever showed up for them. It wasn't because his parents were neglectful though, but rather because he simply didn't tell them. Since this was back when his mother was visiting the hospital more frequently, Sung didn't want to burden her with something so trivial. Now, the interview went pretty much as we saw, finishing up with the request to help Jinna's friend Song Yi. As soon as Sung heard that she was an E rank, he immediately knew it wouldn't be long before she was either dead or crippled.
Yeah.
Such was the fate for those ranked at the bottom.
Which is why he wanted
The
her out
dungeon
of
was
it.
simply no place for an E rank.
The amount of extra information is insane, by the way. I had no idea how much the anime was leaving out. I'll say as an anime-only viewer, you don't really need it. But having it is better.
Normally, Sung wouldn't have cared at all, but because she was a person he
They're
was
obviously
somewhat
doing a
acquainted
good job
with,
without
he
it,
felt
but
a
it's still
certain
good to have it.
responsibility to teach her why the dungeon wasn't for her. So, when Sung had gone to pick her up to take her to the raid, that's when he saw her circumstances weren't very different from his own. She lived in a place that indicated she wasn't very well off, and that made it clear that she was likely just trying to provide for herself. This was a reason Sung knew he couldn't judge her for, since he too did the exact same thing. He had put himself in harm's way just to provide for his family. So, as much as Sung wanted to stop being a hunter back then, he knew he couldn't because his mother's life depended on it.
Yeah, he had no choice.
Sung Yi's circumstances may not be exactly the same, but she could have her own reasons as to why she needs to keep being a hunter. Either way, Sung was going to show her exactly what awaited her in the dungeon. He framed it as him simply trying to mold her into a better hunter, but in actuality was bringing her just so that she could see the cruel reality of it all. One terrifying instance was more than enough to show the truth. At least that's how it was for him. Now, it was in between all this that Jinho had his own massive scene, one that highlighted the dynamic between him, his brother, his father, and even his cousin.
You know, I've just realized how interesting it is when you think that Jin-Woo goes around summoning people, bringing them onto his force. When if you think about the origins of Jin-Woo, it's not too dissimilar. You know? It's almost like he was, like, arised. Although he never died, but you know what I mean? And now he goes around doing that. You know, almost like a vampire. He got bit and now he's biting others.
The whole event was an ancestral rites ceremony for his grandfather, something Jinho wasn't particularly interested in. He was tucked away in a corner, bored out of his mind, paying no attention to any of the elites currently present. This was meant to serve as a contrast to Jinho's brother, who the novel paints as one of the most exceptional people there. With perfect grades and numerous successful business ventures, he was the cream of the crop while Jinho just couldn't compare. Luckily, Jinho's cousin Suyeon was there to lighten the mood, making fun of his brother and his stuck-up attitude. Her lighthearted insults weren't something Jinho could get behind though, since if he wanted to get back at his brother, he knew he simply had to beat him. That brought into conversation the topic of his plan to become a guildmaster, something Suyeon apparently already knew about. The reason why that is because as an A-rank hunter herself, she really didn't want to
A-rank hunter. She looks kind of like Power a bit from Chainsaw Man.
work for Jinho's brother. It was only natural she become a member of whatever guild the head of the family was forming, but to do so under Jin Sung's leadership, well, let's just say she'd rather die. I won't get too deep into what else the two discussed, but just know that this is where her character is actually debuted. For the anime, it's likely we'll see her later. Now, there was also a scene where Jinho's dad would reveal his own impressions, highlighting the harsh tutelage under which Jinho and his siblings were brought up under. It could essentially be described as a tiger wanting to raise cubs instead of kittens. Jinho's brother and sister were the cubs, while he unfortunately was seen as the kitten. This brings us now to yet another massive cutscene, one depicting how the Red Gate had become a Red Gate. Long story short, it was pretty much due to professional incompetence. A gate measuring device was found to be acting up, but rather than report and rescind the permits for the 7 gates it recently measured, like how the employees who found the device were supposed to, they instead decided to simply ignore it.
What
the potential
dicks,
trouble
man.
it could cause made
What
them
dick?
feel like they could.
Imagine that. Oh, this has been messing up for like 10 gates. Should we fix it? Nah. Yeah, I agree. Nah, let's not fix it. No. Well, I mean, it could cause a lot of issues, couldn't it? Yeah, but fixing it would be crazy. Yeah, I agree. Crazy. Let's just leave it not fixed.
Lose their job over it. Some of those troubles included the additional resources the association would have to spend remeasuring the gates, while the guilds who bought them would get
additional resources. Surely this one's broken, this one's not broken. How many gates was it? 10. Okay, here you go, Jimmy. Go and measure those 10 gates again and be back by the afternoon. Oh man, all those additional resources, Jesus.
upset that they couldn't do their raids anymore. Plus, with the additional delay increasing the chances of a dungeon break, all were potential issues that made losing their jobs seem
This has probably been explained, but I don't remember. Can anyone walk into a gate, or do you have to be a hunter or an adventurer to go into the gate?
weren't more likely. So, for a job like
have
this
to have
where
a rank?
getting in was as hard
Or
as
can
passing
anyone
the
go
bar,
in? They'll
just
just
the
die
thought of
straight away.
losing it was enough to make these employees disregard the error. They were well aware the consequences could easily cost the lives of the hunters going into these gates, but since nothing was reported in the 2 days since the 7 gates were measured, they figured the remaining 4 left to be completed should be fine as well. That's why the red gate was improperly rated.
God,
The initial
AniNews is
reading was placed
amazing,
at C,
isn't
but the
aren't
faulty
they, man?
nature of the measuring device made such a reading inaccurate. It was more likely this gate was at the B or A rank. The fact a red gate spawned was enough to prove it. It was impossible for red gates to spawn from anything lower than the B rank.
Ah, that's interesting. Again, important information that was left out. Very freaking interesting now you think about it, huh? I'm also randomly, if you're wondering why I'm looking down here, it's because I'm sending myself a reminder to go buy some hot cross buns. Because for some reason, I all of a sudden really fancy them, and I don't know why. I don't know why. That's it.
That's why Beck was so mad when he got here, because the whole thing was a mistake that easily could have been avoided. I mean, even after the gate turned
Beck
red
seems
and
like
the
a pretty
guild
cool
called
character.
the association still denied that any mistakes were made. They stuck with the conclusion that it was a C rank gate, despite Beck knowing himself that it was higher. So the whole thing just didn't make sense to him. In any case, the last scene left out from the novel was a small side part showing the home life of An. He was living his bachelor life watching the news, listening to reports of an
He
unexplained
seems like a nice
explosion
dude
within the
as well.
American Hunters Association headquarters. There were rumors that the cause was due to a new rising talent causing friction among the S-ranked hunters. It was before An could hear more about it, though, that Sung would call and make his request. An believed this to be Sung showing interest in the White Tiger Guild, so it was only natural he say yes to whatever Sung was asking him for. If anything, this was a great way to show just how exceptional the guild's training system was. That brings us to when the Red Gate incident begins, but rather than talk about that and stop halfway through, I'll instead do all of it in the next video. To finish things up, I just want to talk about some extra scenes
Look
with
at that
Hwang
dude.
Dong-soo. So, when him and Woo were
Ultimate
in the
Chad
airport,
bro.
Hwang had actually tried to recruit Woo to the Scavenger Guild. This was an invitation Woo would never accept because both him and the association knew just how terrible both Hwang Dong-soo and his brother were. I mean, it was obvious what Dong-suk was doing in the dungeons,
Yeah.
but the association could never investigate because Dong-soo was his brother.
Yep.
That being the case, Woo really
Makes
didn't
sense.
like how either of them never showed guilt for committing the murders he knew they were responsible for. Now,
It's kind of funny when you think about how this guy is so angry that he believes someone killed his brother, despite the fact that he and his brother killed loads of people. The hypocrisy is insane, you know? It's sort of live by the sword, die by the sword, but that seems to be lost on his big old head.
the other scene involved Woo asking Dong-soo if he wanted to see his brother, but surprisingly Dong-soo said he didn't care for the dead. He was a bit curious about what happened for the funeral, but as of right now, his only concern was the trash his brother left behind. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. It's everything you missed from the events leading up to the Red Gate.
There's someone in my life I know who's similar, and where they care more about the aftermath than the actual death itself, and they don't seem to talk about what was lost. They just talk about other things around it. It's hard to explain without talking too much about personal things. But that is interesting because he doesn't seem to give a damn about Jin-Woo. You know, like he believes Jin-Woo wasn't even involved in the death. That's what he said he believes. But yeah, and when they were like, well, why do you want to kill him? He's like, because it's an excuse. He's just a murderer. But because he's so strong, no one can stop him, you know?
I hope what you saw helps you enjoy
He doesn't actually
solo
care
leveling
about his
more,
brother.
and if it did, then leave a like and let me know down in the comments. Be sure to subscribe too, since I'll be making these videos weekly. So, until the next one, ciao.
Ciao. Till the next one, ciao. Shout out AniNews, man. This channel is brilliant. This channel is slowly becoming one of my favorite channels to check out, man. So good. Shout out AniNews. Whenever I do these reactions, always make sure you go support the original content creators. They're the ones who put these incredible videos together. So shout out AniNews. What a brilliant video, by the way. Literally conveying and adding so much information that I feel like would just be completely lost. And AniNews does an excellent job at doing it pretty much spoiler-free, which is wonderful as well. Like, as someone like me, and I imagine a few of you watching this as well, we're anime-only viewers, we don't want to be spoiled, we don't want to, like, have these in-depth analysis and comparisons to the book, you know, that are going to spoil us. But what we do love is when we get the spoiler-free breakdowns that adds context, you know, that takes stuff from the books and the novels that was left out, puts it into context, and it just enhances our viewing experience. And I honestly feel like this is going to do just that. Going forward, I already feel like I understand a little more about the motives and emotions of the characters. Jin-Woo is becoming this, like, just ice dude. No pun intended on the previous episodes, but he is. You know, he does come across very emotionless, very uncaring, and just kind of doing his own thing. And I know some people are going to take, like annoyance at that statement because he protected the girl, his sister's friend, and he obviously seemed to have a lot of care for that situation, cares for his mother, cares for his family. And sure, that's all true, but that's not what's on the surface. You know, we can't read his mind. We can just presume that's how he's feeling and based on the actions. But on the surface, he doesn't really seem to show much emotion. And, you know, and like with that in mind, it's kind of hard to like understand what he's actually feeling. And I've been like wondering if he's just becoming like emotionless. But with the extra context that the book adds, you understand that he isn't becoming emotionless. If anything, he seems to just becoming a bit arrogant. And I'm not saying that's a negative thing, go for it. But that is kind of what he's doing. He's like just becoming a bit more cocky and a bit more arrogant. You know, he's getting some confidence. And that's why he's acting the way he is. You know, he's like now looking how people are reacting to him. And even though he's not reacting or seems to be oblivious to it in the anime, there's a part of him that's kind of enjoying it, which I like because that's realistic, you know? Like, that's how most people would be. Like, even if people would say they won't be, they would be. And it's nice that that is how he's feeling. Because if someone went from, like, let's just be brutally honest here. Let's say someone went from not being very attractive and not really getting any attention to being suddenly incredibly attractive, shredded, handsome, and getting tons of attention. There's no way they wouldn't enjoy that a little bit, you know? Obviously, if it was over, like, crazy celebrity-style attention, probably would be a bit grinding. But at first, you're probably going to be like, this is kind of nice. I'm kind of enjoying this. And it's nice that we got to see a little look into him kind of enjoying it because he is getting all of these abilities and all this stuff and all this money and all this everything with it. And he does seem to kind of be enjoying it. And it seems that he's also like coming to peace a little bit with the idea of people discovering his like true ranking, whatever it's going to be, which I'm excited to see. But yeah, brilliant video. Very well put together. Loved it. And again, all these solo leveling videos just keep making me so excited for the next episode. Already can't wait for episode 3. I'm going to be hyped for this entire season. I'm going to be so sad when it ends. I hope you guys are enjoying all my reactions. Like I said, if you are, please like the video and please subscribe. Let's see if we can hit that 50k milestone soon. And shout out AniNews for putting together such an incredible video. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, my friends, you will see me in the next video.